Hi, Judy Courtney. Excuse me, Judy Courtney. I had a couple of structural questions and then a use question. On the structural question, when I looked at the proposals, does that imply that those cement walls, I don't know who I'm asking this of, those cement walls will be removed?
No.
So all the use is going to fit into the existing footprint, so which is classrooms, right? Especially on the first floor is mostly classrooms. So it's a very
St. Paul's is designed as 500 classrooms.
Right.
Right?
Okay. So it's a limited design, at least on the first floor, right? In terms of layout.
On the first floor, we have large rooms on the first floor. They're parlor rooms. On the other
Okay.
floors, walls could be taken out between classrooms to create larger spaces.
Right, because they're
Right.
not the stone walls, right?
Right. The bearing walls are the perimeter walls.
Right.
And the interior corridor walls.
Okay. So and
Those are
I'm
bearing
sorry.
walls.
So they'd remain in this proposal. They would remain.
So far, we're keeping all those walls.
Got it.
As far as I know.
Okay. And then the way I saw the different floors, the implication is that the fourth floor is in just as good a shape as the first floor. Is that correct?
Well, there's some water damage on the fourth floor because of the open roof areas.
Right. Right. So there's more.
But some of that water infiltrated to the floors below. In that one
Understood.
particular photograph, it showed that what kind of damage can occur when you leave the roof open over a long period of time.
Right. It felt to me, I'll say, as you were talking about the status of the building, was that the building was in very good shape except for that one floor that had fallen through on the second floor. I don't know if that's accurate, if I'm saying that accurately.
I think it was 1,500 square feet, you said? Out of, yeah, it's about 1% of the whole building.
So the fourth floor is in pretty good shape then? Interesting.
Yeah, it's in better shape now that we have a new roof.
If I could just clarify,
Right, because I thought there was a thing in the paper about what terrible shape it was all in.
well, in general, there's been a lot of water damage, as you could see from the photographs. But that room that caved in, we wanted to give you an inkling of the good and the bad in the building. That is one room, I believe, from memory, it's on the third floor. It came crashing down from the water, but apparently there was a drain outside that seems to have contributed to that room getting
Right.
more
Okay.
damage.
All right, because I know, as I said, reading about what terrible shape the building was in, I'm surprised that you're saying it's actually in very good shape except for this 1%.
A lot of the work that will need to be done is, I'm going to call it cosmetic, if you
Okay.
will. But there'll be, probably abatement and so forth that, like any construction job, has to be done.
All right,
But in general, the building is sound.
okay. And then,
And again, the structural dictates limitation as to what can
sure,
go into.
sure. And then a use question on the, I think on the side where the schools or whatever might be. Could someone speak a little bit more about that? I wasn't clear whether that was going to be an actual preschool or was your thinking that that was going to be leased out to someone else? Like, we're not going to run as a village an emergency backup daycare center, for example, are we?
Right now, that's all open. I don't think we are, but we may. I called it an early learning center to accommodate the obvious need, and it's purposely gray because it has to be defined.
But would it have to be run by the village, right? It couldn't be run by a private organization, for example.
It can't be run by private, no.
Right. And my final question is, I could be wrong about this. I thought I had heard a while ago that because of the designation as a historic building, that we could not put one of our public schools in there. Is that correct? That's a state. I thought I had heard that was a state designation.
Let me clarify one point. Before he gets to that one, I just want to go back to your nursery question. You have to remember that on this site, for many years, the cathedral ran a nursery school in those 3 cottages.
Right.
Right.
So
that tells you...
So we're going back to that?
No. Remember what the premise was for tonight's meeting. This is an open opportunity. Some people may want it, some people don't want it. But I'm just suggesting to you that there is a legal basis for saying that for those years, a nursery school run by something other than the Village of Garden City was permitted and encouraged on this site. That's all. Whether that applies going forward is something we'll take a look at. But it is historically true to say that for multiple years, the Cathedral Nursery School operated on the St. Paul's campus. So to
Until it
say
was-
whether or not it's
never mind, I
daycare,
won't get into
non-daycare,
that.
private, these are
Okay.
things that we will have to evaluate, and we're open to that discussion. We don't have a preconceived notion on that. But it would be false to leave here saying that you've made a decision that private use is not possible on daycare here, which is what you said, as I heard it.
Oh,
because
I thought private use of any, I
No,
thought
no.
private use of any type was not allowed because of the parkland
That's a different-
designation.
That's a different question. I'm just saying historically, on the nursery school issue, there was a historic nursery school here.
So is private use of this space allowed under the parkland designation?
The question isn't private use. The question is, can you do it without authority from Albany?
Okay,
Okay? And so, as I said earlier, there was a list of things that
Yep.
couldn't be done. Those are things that can't be done without getting home rule legislation authorizing that in Albany. What we've tried to focus on so far is things that we can do without having to go to Albany. And so education is one of those areas. As you recall, I said, how will the program be designed? How will it be implemented? How will it be conducted? And so the thought that you're going to conduct it with a private enterprise, that's going to probably send you to Albany.
Okay.
So what we've tried to focus on is what can we do within this community without going to Albany? Unfortunately, there are no bright lines as to what is parkland use and what isn't parkland use. And the law is that if it has been designated parkland, which happened in 2005, whatever you use it for going forward has to be consistent with what is not defined but is described as parkland use. And that's what we're going to try to get to the bottom of when we have projects or proposals here that we decide have merit and that we want to investigate further, that they can be afforded, et cetera. Can we do this on our own without going to Albany?
Because you just heard, there is some suggestion that maybe emergency childcare or something along those lines would be helpful. That's one opinion. You clearly have suggested a different opinion so far. That's part of the tension of this discussion, and that we'll take into consideration and discuss all summer and come back to you with our conclusions on that.
and just for my own education, the thought I had heard that you couldn't put a public school in this building because, is that accurate or is that not true?
No, once it's a parkland, there are
Yes.
a number of things you can't do.
Right?
And a public school
School
would
is
be
one of them.
those.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There are a lot of things that could have been, that may have been, I don't know, considered back before it was parkland, which is in 2005, that might have been doable then, and might even be, and might have be considered desirable today. But the parkland designation takes
Understood.
what is a broad spectrum of, that can be viewed as public and municipal use and narrows that spectrum
Yes.
dramatically.
Okay, thank you.